Powerful, long-lasting, and expensive, hanging behind the counter like prescription medication in gold-embossed blister packs. These were most certainly not available through the Battery of the Month Club. Next were the high-end lead batteries, sturdy, dependable batteries, moderately priced, and prominently displayed near the front of the store. These were also not available through the Battery of the Month Club. Finally, at the bottom of the barrel were the standard lead batteries. These were literally piled in barrels, cunningly located way at the back of the store, in a dark corner near the TV antennas.
吉村バンされた映像。
Customers who came in looking for their free batteries had to walk the entire length of the premises, past the CB radios and stereo headphones and remote control racing cars. Nothing would stop.
バンっていうか、だってあれってさ、本気来たら一時的にダメだったよって。
あ、そうだよ。
じゃあいいよ。
よくないじゃん、なんかあんま。バンを。
よ
くないね。回数重ねると終わるじゃん。
It didn't matter that the batteries were only worth 29 cents. It didn't matter that most of them were already half dead. They came, they grabbed. And as far as I can remember, not one of them ever paid for a damn thing. I was such a crappy salesman. I was young and foolish. I thought my education in game design was happening at the keyboard. I almost missed the lesson coming through the front door. Fortunately, I wasn't the only person fooling around with games on micros. All over the country, people like me were experimenting. Scott Adams was coding what would soon become the world's first commercial adventure game. Adventure games? My future employer, Infocom, was being founded, along with other legendary companies like Online Systems, Sirius, Personal Software, and SSI. Those were exciting times. Teenagers were making fortunes. Games were cheap and easy to build. The slate was clean. But in 1979, the biggest news in gaming had nothing to do with computers. On the morning of the autumn equinox, September 20th, a new children's picture book appeared in the stores of Great Britain. This picture book was rather peculiar.
今エペックスやってる。
It consisted of 15 meticulously detailed color paintings, illustrating a slight whimsical tale about a rabbit delivering a jewel to the moon. On the back jacket of the book was a color photograph of a real jewel, shaped like a running rabbit, 5 inches long, fashioned of 18-karat gold, suspended with ornaments and bells, together with a sun and moon of blue quartz. According to the blurb underneath, this very jewel had been buried somewhere in England. Clues pointing to its location were sealed,
その回知らない。
and in the pictures of the book, the treasure would belong to whoever found it.
何それ？めっちゃ複雑。めっちゃ
違うんですか？違うんですか？え？
そうだろお前。
何お前そう毎回変なことやってんだよ。
これをあったら回6個目だわ。じゃあすごいなお前。
なんだよ。送ってくるやつが。え？
もう一回。
回6個も出してるから。
いや回6個じゃなくて入れ替えたら実際3個だけど入れ替えたら6個に。お前のも合わせて。一旦スクショするわ。
One obscure part, unfortunately known by the nickname Rabbit Hill, was so riddled with holes excavated by misguided treasure seekers that the authorities had to erect signs assuring the public that no gold rabbits were to be found. Some hunters ended up seeking psychological counseling for their obsession. The craze leapt over the Atlantic Ocean and invaded America, France, Italy, and Germany. It sold over 1 million copies in a few months, a record unrivaled by any children's title until the advent of Harry Potter. Over 150,000 copies were sold in foreign
これ
translations,
じゃダメなんだね。だから、
including 80,000 copies
な
in
んか多分単純なん
Japanese,
だろうな。
despite the fact that the puzzle was only
あ
solvable
あ、じゃあ、
in English.
じゃあ、多分
It didn't
だ
matter
これ
that the
と
masquerade jewel was only worth a
待っ
few
て、これゴール
thousand
ド。
dollars. Many seekers spent
右上か。
far more than that in their months of exploration and travel. It was the thrill of the chase, the possibility of being the one. Treasure hunts, secret messages, and hidden things seem to exert an irresistible appeal. They're fun to look for and to talk about. And this fact of human psychology has been exploited in computer games since the earliest days.
こうか。
It finds expression in the hidden surprises we call Easter eggs.
ここは絶対通るやん。ここ、
Atari's Stephen Wright
Cool.
is credited with coining this term in the
そ
first
れがわ
issue
かん
of
ない。
Electronic Games magazine.
分
The
けなきゃい
first
けない。
Easter egg in a commercial computer game
お
appeared in an early Atari
これ反対すれ
2600
ばニコニコになる。
called, simply
4個にな
enough,
る。
Adventure. By a sequence of unlikely movements and
っていう
obscure
話。
manipulations, players could discover a secret room where the words "created by Warren Robinette" appeared in flashing letters.
吉村今何やってる？
Over the decades, Easter eggs and their evil twin, cheat codes, have become an industry within an industry. Entire magazines and websites are now devoted to their carefully orchestrated discovery and
アクタイプ
dissemination.
何が
じゃあ、
They're part of our toolkit,
今何
our
やってんの？
basic vocabulary,
あ、いや
the
だからこれ見てる。
language of computer game design. Computer gamers
あ、
may
じゃあ
have been the
今ね
first
福
to
島
refer
の
to
書いと
hidden
いてる。
surprises
あ、
as
あそこ
Easter eggs, but we
写真撮れば
certainly
写真撮れ
weren't
ば
the
これ
first
こ
to
そ。
use them. Painters, composers, and artists
いや、
of
ちょっと
every
普通に俺
discipline
解けてない。
have
ちょ
been
っと待って
hiding stuff in their works for centuries.
単純な
The
んで、
recent
絶対単
advent
純
of
なんで。ちょっ
VCRs
と
and
待って
laserdisc
写真
players with freeze frame capability
撮ってない。
exposed decades of secret Disney erotica.
じゃあ待って、普通に答え
Thomas
がね、どう
Kincaid,
ちょっ
the
と
self-appointed painter of light, amuses himself by
え、
hiding
これ、
the
これだけで
letter
は答えでき
N
ないもしかし
in
て。
his works. A number beside his
そうなんだよね。
signature
これで
indicates
解け
how
るよ。
many N's are hidden in
解
each
けると思う
painting.
よ。
解けるよね
Picasso,
多分。
Dali, Raphael,
どこスタート？
Sen, and dozens of other
左
painters
下。
左下か。
concealed all kinds of stuff in their
左下。
paintings. A favorite trick was hiding portraits of themselves,
なんで
their
ここが
families, friends, and fellow artists
え
in
ーっ
crowd
と、
scenes. El Greco loved
確かに。
dogs, but the Catholic
なんとな
Church
くわかる。
forbid him
なんとなく
from
わかる。
including any in his sacred
どうしようこれ。
so he hid them, usually within the outlines of
届かない。
celestial clouds. Composer Dmitry Shostakovich chafed under the political censorship imposed by the Soviet Ministry of Culture. His symphonies and chamber works are loaded
白を3
with
つに分け
hidden
るかな。
signatures and subversive subtexts, which, had they been recognized, would have sent him to Siberia. Mozart's
あれこれって
opera,
もしかして
The
コンペイ
Magic
トのルールも
Flute,
初
is
入ってる。
filled with musical
入ってる。
allusions to the rituals of the Freemasons.
うわ、マジで
コンペそうにやってんだろ。
of which he and his
コンペイ
mentor
トルールも入ってるの
were
か、俺
involved.
適当に考えたわ。
But the most
待ってよ。
famous purveyor of Easter eggs is that champion of the late Baroque,
そうだよ。
the ultimate musical nerd, Johann Sebastian.
だから難
Bach
しい。
was a student of gematria, the art of assigning numeric values to letters of the alphabet. A equals 1.
赤も黄色も6個ずつあるからね。これなかなか難しいですよ。
By comparing, sequencing, or otherwise manipulating these numbers, secret messages can be concealed. Bach took particular delight in the geometrical numbers 14
これ
and
ドア開くからな。
14 is the sum of the initials of his last
2回目以
name.
降はちょっとやりづらいかも。
B equals 2, A equals 1, C equals 3, and H equals 8. 41 is the sum of his expanded initials, J.S. Bach. These two numbers show up over and over again in Bach's compositions. One of the better-known examples is his setting of the chorale
待
Vordaner
って、普
Throne.
通わからん。
The first
Come
line
on,
of
I-
the melody
hang on,
contains
come on.
exactly 14 notes, and the entire
いけ
melody
たか？
from start to finish contains
いけたのか？
41. Another of Bach's favorite games was
い
the
けて
puzzle
ないな。
canon.
いけてる
A
わ。
canon is a melody that sounds good
いけて
when you
ね
play it on top of itself. a little bit out of sync.
ね
Verajak and row, row, row your
いけたっ
boat
ぽいいけた
are
っぽい
familiar examples of simple two-voice
なん
cannons.
でだよ。
But a
なんでお
cannon
前
can
そん
employ
な
any
簡単に
number
い
of
けんだよ。
voices. And you don't have to play each voice the same way either. You can change the octave, transpose the key, invert the pitch, play it backwards, or any combination. Finding melodies that make good multi-voice cannons is a fussy and difficult art, of which Bach was an undisputed
トリミン
master.
グすればいいトリミング
Now, in a puzzle canon,
そっか。
the
あとで
composer specifies the basic melody and the number
こ
of
れとペアでも
voices,
いいね。
but not the relationship of the voices.
はい、できた。は
The
い、でき
student
た。
has to figure out the
Zo.
position and key of each voice,
嫌いだ。
and whether to
コンペトー
perform
ラーだ
them
け。
inverted and or backwards. Bach wrote quite a number of puzzle canons. The most famous, BWV 1076, is part of a fascinating story. One of Bach's students
え、で
was
き
a
なくねこ
fellow
れ
by the name of
無理だよ。
Lorenz
ちょっと
Mizler,
雑だ。
founder of the Society
あ、
of
できました。
Musical Science. This elite
あ、
invitation
待って、
only
俺すごい
institution
勘違いしてた。そう
devoted
か。
itself to
な
the
んだなんだ
study of Pythagorean
コンペイトーかこれ。
philosophy and the
別にいるか、222で入ってもいるか。
mathematics.
そうだよ
他の色入ってもいい。
そうだ。
Distinguished
忘
membership
れてた。
reads like a
いやそれはさすがに無理ですよ
無理だ。そう、無理だなって、2で2個で全部分けるっていう不可能だ
and
な。
eventually
不可能ですよ。
Mozart. Applicants for membership
ってことはここからまだ時間かかるな
were required to submit
そうですね。
an oil portrait of themselves, along with a specimen of original music. With nerdly efficiency, society member number
そうだね
14
別からそうだね
decided
また
to
違う回
combine
を
these admission
見せてくれよ
requirements into a
吉村
single work. He sat for a
もう俺は考えない
portrait
そ
of
れは
Elias Hausmann, official artist at the court of
疲
Dresden.
れたから考えない
This portrait, which now hangs in the gallery of the town hall in Leipzig, is the only indisputably authentic image of Bach in
俺
existence.
吉野の裏番組だから
The
裏番
Hausmann
組。
portrait shows Bach dressed in a formal
あ
coat
あれ
with
何お手
exactly
で。
ボクタンのジャンプパッドにミラージュのデコイが乗ると、ジャンプパッド消滅するってのがあって。
In his hand is a sheet of music paper, upon
や
which is
やって
written
得
a
したいのそ
puzzle
れ
canon for 6
いや、敵のジャンプパッド着せるよ。
In
で
1974, a manuscript was
傑作そう
discovered
だよな
which proved that this
それが
canon was
なん
the
で、
13th
届かせな
in
い
a。series of exactly 14 canons
も
based
う
on
置い
the
てある時
ground
大体誰もいないから
theme of the famous Goldberg variations. As if these musical gymnastics weren't enough, Bach liked to hide messages in his
うるさいけど打って消せる
compositions
人
by assigning notes to the letters. His initials, B-A-C-H, correspond to the pitch sequence
あ、答え忘れ
B
ちゃう、答え忘れちゃ
flat,
う。
A, C, and B natural in German letter notation. This
YouTube
theme
最近
makes
厳
its
しいから
most
な
memorable appearance in the last bars of his final
YouTube
composition,
の規約が厳し
The
い。
Art of Fugue,
うん違う
published
普通に
soon after
バン
his
されるじゃん
death in 1750.
あれなんでだろうね。AI が何
Comes from the
誤解して
Latin
る
fuga,
わかんない
which means flight, as in running away.
まあ、所詮は AI。
So, the art of fugue is the art of
これ
flight,
に関しては。
the art of taking a theme and running with it. Bach wrote hundreds of fugues, but
Ah, I
none
can.
as sublime
Oh,
as
that's
this sequence of
多分
14.
別会でも何で
あ
もない
同じ同じ
In the last and most complicated
あ違かったわ
fugue in the series,
え
the first
ー
and second
ルートが違う
sections
ルートが違う
develop normally.
分
This
け
is
方合ってる
followed by the
分け方同じ
BACH
書き方
signature.
同じルート違う
And
け
then
ど。
suddenly,
右から行っ
without
て
any warning
上
or
行って
structural
下行
justification,
って
the
上行
fugue stops.
だから
Dead in
線
its
はあそう反対だけ
こ
そうそうそう
下
One
下
of
か
the
ら、
composer's
最初
twin
右行ってってよ
children,
ね。
his son Carl Philipp Emanuel,
あー、そうか、できるのか、それ。
Bach
そうだ
died
そうだ
moments after those last few notes were written.
じゃあ2
This
つかな
story is probably apocryphal. The Easter eggs in Bach's music are a pleasant obscurity, known chiefly to professors and students of Baroque music. But in March of 2010, when this lecture was first delivered, those Easter eggs
それが別会を
of the entire classical music industry. Sitting
な
near
ん
the
か
top
嫌な
of
の
the
が見えます
classical
ね。
music charts that month was a compact disc on the
これ懐かしいでしょ
ECM
こういうの
label
どうやって
called
だっけ
Lorimer.
えーっと
It was performed
こ
by
れ
the
前やったよな
Hilliard
こういう
Choral
の
だろう
Ensemble.
な。
Together
一
with
番
the
初めに
talented
俺が
but
敵を焼いて
until
溶けちゃった
then
から、なんか
little-known
地獄みたい
violinist
な。
Christoph
パズ
Potter.
ル。パズル
The
が見える
music
な
on Morimer
あ、そう
is
なの
based on a geometriacal
え、そうじゃないの
analysis
え、あれこれ、
of
だ
Bach's
か
partita
ら
in
ニ
D
ハ
minor
オ、
for
ニハ
solo
オ、
violin.
そうそうそうそこの
This
ステージ
analysis
Yeah,
by
well, yeah,
German
but sure.
Professor Helga Thon
Yeah, she might have
assigns
pushed
numeric
Yeah, but
values
the-
to the duration of notes the number of
枠が出てくる。
bars, and the German
Ah,
letter
isoじゃなかった
notation of the partita.
以上じゃなかった。
In doing so, she claims to have discovered the complete text of several liturgical ceremonies
Gomenna.
encoded in the notes. The CD presented these
Ah,
hidden
これか。
texts superimposed
お前こ
over
これ
the original music. The result was strangely melancholy.
違うでしょ。
選択肢多すぎ。
and very, very
選択肢多すぎ
haunting.
る。
Quite a few music
これな
critics
わけないわ
rejected this disc. They didn't buy Professor
いけ
Thone's
そういけそう。
analysis, dismissing it as a combination of numerology and canny
ないん
marketing.
だけど、その機能を
Their
得ただけ
caution
は。
was
さ
not
あ、どこ
without
にあるんでしょうか
basis.
ね。
Numerology is a slippery slope
もっと
down
遠く。
which many a fine mind has slid to its doom.
ちょっと見てく
家
わ。
できるから。
Allow me to offer
Ah,
an
なんか見える。
amusing anecdote from my own
あ、なんか見える。
画面ちっ
Back
ちゃ
in
い
the
な
early 90s, before the internet took off, one of the more popular online bulletin board systems was a service called Prodigy. I bought an account on Prodigy so I could join a fraternal interest group and gossip with fellow
同じや、
members
同じじゃねえよ。
around the country. One day,
だからさ、
a
木の
stranger
枝でさ
appeared on、
ル
our
ートを
bulletin
塞ぐ
board.
ルートとさ、あ
Right
れがあるよ
away,。I knew
木の枝
we
自
were
体
in
がさ
trouble.、
ルートを
This
紡いで
fellow,
るパターン。
whose name was Gary, began
Yo, hold
spouting all kinds of apocalyptic nonsense about worldwide
俺たち
conspiracies,
サイズ感が
secret societies, and devil worship. At first, we tried to be polite. We
これ
questioned
手
his
前の棒って
sources,
神じゃない
corrected his histories,
言って
logically
るやん。
refuted his claims, and tried to behave in a civilized manner. But instead
ところ
of
に合わせ
soothing
てみ。
him, our attention only made him worse. His
あ、これか、
conspiratorial
ここか。
warnings became urgent, approaching hysteria. He began to threaten people who
あ、天才
disagreed
で
with
す。
him. To coin a phrase, Gary went all
遠い。
uppercase. But his most urgent warnings weren't
あれ
about
どこ
the
行った？
gays,
あれ？
the Jews,
天才
the
かな？
Rockefellers, or the Illuminati.
ああ、そ
According
こ
to
空いてるか。
Gary, the
いや
greatest
まあ、じゃあ
enemy
これ
of
ね、2階の景
mankind
色を見て今日は
was
ちょっと
Santa
多
Claus.
分今日だけできると思えないな。
Gary claimed to possess a secret numerical formula that proved beyond a
まあ、
shadow
詰ま
of
って
a
ないんだよ
doubt
な。いい感
that
じに詰まっ
Santa
たでしょ。
Claus was an avatar
空
of
いてないん
the
だけ
Antichrist.
ど。
Intrigued,
空いてないんだけど。
3階がありま
to
す。
reveal his formula. In doing so, we walked right into his trap.
並ぶ。
確かに俺
I should have known.
街ラストにしなきゃこれできないなっていうか。
その
I
通
fell
り。
for it. I sent him the
どっ
15
かで積むの
bucks.
です。
Less than a week later, the book arrived.
なんなんこれ。
Above an ominous photograph of the Washington
で、答え
Monument
になっちゃうと。
was emblazoned
え、これ、
それはない
街もさ、同じようにビーム出るでしょ。
666,
出
the
る。
final warning. Inside this
いや別に
privately
街から最初やろうと思えばできちゃう。
494
できる
page monster,
答えも出る。
Gary reveals a simple
あ、そこ話されてる。
geometrical formula
2周目の
which
人
he
だけだな、みん
claims
な
was developed by the ancient
あ、小田話されてる。
Sumerians.
ダウンロー
This
ド。
formula assigns
花
successive
席者
products of
花席者
6
に
to each letter of the alphabet.
実はこの花全ステージにあるとかないとか。
B equals 12,
ないない
C equals 18,
ちょっと待って
etc.
うん。
ケーブルどこ？
ある程度あった
Imagine my dismay when I
あ、4回もあ
applied
る
this
っていうか。
ancient formula
4
to
回も
the
ある
name Santa Claus and obtained the
どこにあった？
blasphemous sum of
あ、線がありますね。
666, the biblical number of the beast.
無形パズルがあり
I
ます
went on Prodigy and reported to the stunned members of our interest group that
あれ
Gary
待って、
was
ビームっ
right
てさ、
after all.
10
There
個だよ
could
ね。
be no doubt that according to the unimpeachable wisdom of ancient
待てよ。
Samaria, Santa
確か10
Claus
個。
was the Antichrist.
俺は一つやり忘れているもの
I
があ
then
る。
went on to point out several other names which, when
あの、
submitted to Gary's formula,
足跡
also
たどるパ
produced
ズルやっ
the
てない。
sum 666.
あ、
Names
なんかさ、
like
自分が通った道が
Sicilians,
パネルひ
New
っくり返ってよ
York,
くつくやつ。
and New Mexico.
あ
Soon the
あれ
world
やっ
was
てねえ
filled
俺。
with discoveries like computer,
やってない。
Boston
やってないっ
tea,
ていうかね、
and most sinister of all,
途中でやめた。
karaoke.
そう、途中でやめた。
Gary left us alone after that.
いや、
どこだった
迷路のところだよ
Got
ね
my。$15 worth.
そうかな。
But Gary is hardly the first person to connect secret codes.
ちょっと待って、場所どこだっけ？
元祖迷路。
People have been looking for Easter eggs in the
あ
Bible
でもあそ
for
このテトリ
hundreds
ス
of years.
そっち結構遠回りでは
The tradition of Kabbalah can be
遠回りだね。
described as a geometrical meditation
ちょっと待って、
on
場所分かった俺。どうだっ
the
け？
first five
山は登ってるし
days of the Old
山登ってるし
The advent
どこ
of
だっけ？どこだっ
computers
け？
あ、そっち行った方がいい
船で行った方がいい。
made the application
Yeah.
of numerology to the
これ
Bible
ね
fast and efficient. The
な
latest
式
phase
もの
of
とこいい？
Bible searching
から行ける？
was instigated by a
町
book
町
published
町
in
町行って
1998 by Michael
紅葉パズ
Drosnin,
ル
a former Wall Street Journal reporter.
あ、びっくりした。びっくりした。もうやだ、びっくりする。もうやだ、びっくりした。
ほら。
By applying his skip cipher to the Hebrew text of the Old Testament, Brosnan claimed to have discovered predictions of World War II, the Holocaust, Hiroshima, the assassination of Yitzhak Rabin, both Kennedys, the moon landing, Watergate, the Oklahoma City bombing, the election of Bill Clinton, the death of Princess Di, and the comet that collided with Jupiter. He also found predictions of a giant earthquake in LA, a meteor hitting the Earth, and nuclear Armageddon, all scheduled to occur before the end of the last decade.
マジでバズれちゃうじゃん。
結構前から同じだよ。
ここだ。
いや、そんなことないよ。そんなことある？
だからそうじゃん。なんか、少なかった一発あたりのダメージは少なかったです。
俺、もともと同じダメージだと思ってたから、ずっとダブルタップ使ってた。
The stubborn zeal of those who seek the answer to the ultimate literary puzzle. A poisonous conundrum that has squandered fortunes,
そうだよ。これが解けねえんだよ。
driven healthy, intelligent scholars to the brink of
そこ
madness
まで
and beyond.
違う。
Wrote
じゃあこれルールがあってこれいけんのこれここから。
the essays and books devoted to the
絶対そことこなきゃいけないんだよ、最初は。
are sufficient to fill
あ、いいね、
a
そういう考
large
えでいい。
library.
でもだとしても。
Several such libraries actually exist.
足場以外にも
Not even a day-long tutorial, much less an hour lecture, can begin to do justice to this
なんでやり直すの？
complex, bizarre, and dangerously tantalizing
だ
story.
ってこれってパズルとして成立しなきゃダメでし
Nevertheless, for the unacquainted, I will attempt
ょ。だ
to
からこうやって
summarize
例え
the
ば二股にした
issue
ら
in
ダ
a few paragraphs.
ああ、ダメ。
メで
The
しょ。
undisputed facts of Shakespeare's life and career could be scribbled on the back
なんで
of a
二股にした
cocktail napkin.
だから二股にしたらダメでし
For
ょ
a。fact
ダメ。
that a man
だからまあ
named
なんだ
William
ろうな。
Shakespeare
あ、
was
待って、また
born
消
in
した。あ、もうめんどくせえな。
1564 in or around the village of Stratford upon Avon. We know that he had a
めっ
wife
ちゃ消すやん。
and at least 3 children.
こ
We
れ
know he bought property in Stratford, was
あ、そうか、これ
involved
ダ
in
メなの
several
か。こ
lawsuits
れこ
with
こを
his
踏まなきゃいけない
neighbors
のか。
and died there in 1616, aged 52. We also know that during those same years, a man with
最
a
初ここを
last
踏むの
name
か。
similar
確定
to
で。
Shakespeare
だからそうなんだよ。
worked as an actor on the London stage, eventually becoming co-owner of some of the
それを
theaters
加味
there.
した上で、
We also
なん
know
か
that
解けなかった
about
気が
the
する。
same time, a number of most excellent poems and plays were published in London under the name Shakespeare.
うん。
We do not know for a fact that the
これ
landowner
まっ
in
すぐ行って
Stratford
も
and the
ダメ
actor
なんだ
in
よ。
London with a similar last
右行ってもあそこ
name
ぶっ壊れ
were
てる。
one and the same man.
いけないんだよ。
We do not know for a fact that either man had anything to do with the poems and the plays. All we know is that those poems and plays have, in the 400 years since their composition, come to be regarded as a
で、
pinnacle
ここ
of
が
Western
空いて
culture.
ないわけだからダメなわけですよ。
The works attributed to Shakespeare appear to have been written by a man or woman who knew something about just about everything. They're
ここだ
filled
ね。
with
ここが
references
ア
to
ウト。
mythology and classic literature, games
これが
and
ここ1000円で
sports,
モニターにマニッ
war
クでペイかけ
and
てる。
weapons of war,
一回そ
ships
こまで行ってみ
and
れば。
sailing, the law and
あ
legal
だからダメなんだよ。
terminology,
それでだから
court etiquette,
あー
statesmanship, horticulture,
ダメなんだ。
music, astronomy, medicine,
Come
falconry,
on.
and of course, theater.
それができればもうまだいっちゃったんだけど、でもこいつって動きようがない
How
んだ
could
よ。
a farmer's son of uncertain schooling, from a
こいつらっ
mostly
て動きよ
illiterate
うがないって
country
いうか
village,
届かないから
a
これで
man
固
of
定されてるはず
practically
なの。
no account at all, wield
絶対
such
個別だろ。
encyclopedic learning,
Huh?
with so much eloquence and wit, so
で
much
も
wisdom and human understanding. For the first 150
でも
years,
ゴールじゃないの？
nobody questioned
あ
the
の子が邪
traditional
魔してる。
history of the bard.
この子が。
Then,
Tore.
in the late 18th century, Reverend James Wilmot,
Tore.
a distinguished scholar who lived
Yeah.
just a few miles
Ittimi.
north of Stratford, decided to write a
Iken.
biography of the famous
いや、もう一回
playwright.
戻ってみ。
Dr. Wilmot believed that a man as well educated as Shakespeare
そういう
must
こ
have
と
owned a fairly
ずるくない
extensive
ずる
library,
くないずるくない。
despite the fact
ずるくない
that a single book or manuscript is mentioned.
ずるくない待って、それどうや
Over
って
the
待って
years, he
これ書いてあった
speculated, some of those books must have found their way
これ
into
か
local
ここいけんの
collections.
か
ちょっと
And so, the good Reverend Doctor scoured the British countryside.
ずるそれはずるだよ、本当
Literally
に。
every bookshelf
いやもう
within
これはもうウィットネスってゲームだからダメだよ。
ゴリ押しじゃん、
Not
そ
a
ん
single
な。
book from the
そんなことはない。
library
あ
of William
ここで
Shakespeare
回転してる、これ
was
回転してる。
discovered. Neither were there found any letters
これは
to,
特に
from, or about Shakespeare.
てかこれ全部こうやって取れるのか
Furthermore,
も。
no references to the folklore,
ここから
local
自由だ。
sayings, or distinctive dialect of the Stratford area.
めっちゃ自由やん、このゲーム。
Any of Shakespeare's
ゴールから書
writings.
く。
違うわ、しかもこ
Four
れ。
years of
待ってよ。
painstaking
今、いや、
research,
あれだね。
Dr. Wilmot
あれですね。
concluded to his own
そうですね。
that only one person
でもそれが分かっちまえばっていうところはある。
Shakespeare of Stratford had ever demonstrated the
で天体賞
wide-ranging education
どっちだ
and
天体賞か
expressive
天体賞かによるな。
needed to compose those
あ、待って、
poems
のに
and
して終わるか。
plays. That man was the
天体賞
multilingual
天体賞だったら無理でしょ。
philosopher and
無理だ
statesman,
ね。
inventor of the scientific method, chancellor to the courts of Queen Elizabeth and King James, Sir Francis Bacon. Dr. Wilmot never dared to publish his theory, but before he died, he confided it to a friend, James Cowell, who, in 1805, repeated it to a meeting of the Ipswich Philosophical Society. The members of the society were suitably outraged, and the scandalous matter was quickly forgotten. Then, in 1857, a lady from Stratford, Connecticut, published a book called The Philosophy of the Plays of Shakespeare Unfolded.
重なったの。
あ、違う。
Miss Delia Bacon, no relation to
お、すげえ
Francis,
美しい。
claimed that the works of
これ
Shakespeare
美しいな。
were written by a secret cabal
天
of
才天
British
才。
nobility, including Sir Walter Raleigh and Sir
幾何学模様だな。
as well as Sir Francis Bacon. Delia Bacon's book electrified the world of letters. Battle lines were drawn between the orthodox Stratfordians and the heretical Baconians. Literary
これは回が2つある。
societies and scholarly journals were
この
formed
回に
to
2つあ
debate
る。
the evidence. Hundreds of pamphlets, newspaper articles, and essays were published defending each side and ridiculing the opposition with that self-aggrandizing viciousness peculiar to tenured academics. Armed with her explosive book,
もう一個の
Delia
回あるの
Bacon
あれ。
journeyed to Stratford
一応
upon Avon and unbelievably
まあそれはま
obtained
あ
official permission to open Shakespeare's
今は
grave.
必要ないかな。
However, when the moment came to actually lift the stone, Delia's self-doubt precipitated a catastrophic nervous breakdown.
俺はそんなこと考えてる余裕はない。
Penniless in a
そうだ。
madhouse.
今日もエペックス
Around 1888, things began
Ah,
to
ya
get
veré.
a bit out of hand. U.S. Congressman Ignatius Donnelly of Minnesota became interested in the Shakespeare controversy. One day, browsing
こ
through
れで
his
すっきりした
facsimile
気持ちで
copy
ね
of the
明
first
日
folio
明
of
日やんないか
1623,
明日やんないか
he
の
noted that the word bacon appeared on page 53 of the histories
あ
and
例の例の
also
こ
on page
あるよ。
53 of the comedies.
あるの
あるよ。
He also noted that Sir Francis
こんなでっかいところないわけない。
Bacon extensively on the
桜パズルじゃないんだから。
photography.
突然しちゃっ
Donnelly
たよ。
began counting line and
あれ
page
違うわ。
numbers,
飛ん
adding
だりす
and
んだ。
subtracting letters, drawing lines over sentences, circling words, and
あ、そう
crossing
か。
them
これい
out.
らないのか。
The result was a complex and virtually incomprehensible algorithm, which he claimed was invented by Bacon
片方だ
to
けでいいのか、
hide
これ。
secret messages inside the first
い
folio.
や、知らなかった。これは。
Greatest Easter egg hunt in the history of Western civilization.
まあいいや、一応つけてもこっちも。
Here
だ
are
って
just
これあ
a
れでしょ
couple
これそのままこの通り
considered
通りゃ
highlights. A doctor
そういうわけ
named
じゃない。
Orville
そ
Owen
んなわけ
of
ない。
Detroit constructed a bizarre
そんなわ
research
けないね。
tool he called the
まあ
Wheel of
そん
Fortune.
な甘くないか。
This wheel consisted of two giant wooden spools wrapped with a strip of canvas 2 feet wide and 1,000 feet long. Onto this canvas, he glued the separate pages of the complete works of Bacon, Shakespeare, Marlowe, Greene, Peele, and Spencer, together with Burton's Anatomy of Melancholy. By
これはでき
cranking
る
the
わ。
spools back and forth, Dr. Owen could quickly zip across the pages in search of clues
そういうことこれ
and cross references.
びっくりした。
Employing a large team
まあ
of
そっちは無理ですよね
secretaries
って話
and
で。
stenographers, Owen claimed to
あ、
have
全部、あ、
uncovered
全部は
a
できないのか。
complete
あれだけなん
alternative
だ。
history
い
of
や
Elizabethan
さあどう
England,
でしょうかね。さあ
as
どうで
well
しょうか。
as several entirely new Shakespeare plays
やだよ
and。
もうやんだよ。
sonnets.
ね。
Listen to this
やんねえよ、そん
hidden
な。
verse,
やろうかいな。
supposedly penned by the mighty bard himself,
やってみ、や
which
やってくれ。
inspired Dr. Owen to
や
build
ってくれ。
his wheel of fortune.
このゲームを愛してるならやって
Take
くれ。
your knife
やんだよ
and。
愛し
cut
てね。
all our
不要だ
books
よ。
このゲームを
asunder
愛してる風景パズル
and
ベースだ
set the leaves on a great firm wheel, which rolls and rolls. And
風景パズル
turning
く
the
ん涙目
fickle rolling
で
wheel,
けえな
throw
こ
your
れ。
eyes
でかいね
upon
これね。
fortune,
かい
that
な
goddess blind, that stands
でも
upon
これ
a
こそでっかいめっちゃありそう。
stone
これ
that
積んだや
turning and inconstant
逆に別にそ
rolls
んなに
in
じゃないか
restless
マジ？
variation. After publishing 5 thick volumes of this rubbish, Owen announced the discovery of an anagram, indicating that Bacon's original manuscripts were buried near Chepstow Castle on the River Wye.
こう誰か一回したらいい
Owen
ね。
spent the next 15 years and thousands of dollars excavating the bed of the river with boat crews and high
こ
explosives.
れできる？
He died before anything was found. A fellow named Arnsberg wrote an entire book based on the analysis of the significance of a suspicious crack in the tomb of Bacon's mother. A ray of sanity finally appeared in 1957.
で、
あ、これでっかいありそう。
Familiar with the
でっかいめっちゃありそうこれ。
science
やっぱ。
The name William Friedman needs
じゃあ俺難しい方やってるかもしかして。
During World War II,
これやっても
Friedman
さ
was the head of the US
これ
Army's
起動するよね。
Cryptoanalytic Bureau. He is credited with cracking the Japanese Empire's
俺も
most sensitive cipher.
え、
After the war, the colonel
じゃあ
decided
こ
to
っちや
apply
っても
his
ダメなのかじゃあ。
expertise to the study of the Shakespeare ciphers. He
どうだったか覚えてねえ
interviewed
な。
several of the experts in the field and prepared a
これこ
detailed
っちだけやったら
scientific analysis, which he published under the title The
これ苦
Shakespeare
行すぎる。
Ciphers
覚えろ
Examined.
って。バカや。
His conclusion?
確か
In
に
a。word,
できないよ。
bunk.
シャミゲーだわ。
According to the standards of cryptologic
ちなみに
science,
この
not
足跡が
one of
唯
the
一俺が
hidden
調べた。
messages purportedly
No.
discovered in Shakespeare's works
あの
was
当時は
false.
若かった。
The rules
わ
used
ー
to
やめちゃ
extract
え
these messages from the
ザクザク。
text were non-rigorous,
まあちってやめよ
wildly
う今日は。
subjective, and
だって普通にウィッネス
unrepeatable
もう
by
いいや。
anyone
お腹いっ
except
ぱい
the original decipherer. The people involved were not being
足音
dishonest.
とか知らねえよ、こん
They
な。
were channeling their
やめてね
preconceptions.
こっちょっ
They were trapped in a labyrinth of delusion,
かなりのペースで
mining
きるな
order from chaos. Anglers in
と。
a
だって
lake
一日一個連載出して
clear Act
そうだよ。
3, Scene 6.
頑張ってんな。
で
You would think that Friedman's cold,
そっちから帰らない
ruthless exposure would be enough to silence the heretics once and for all. Not a chance. Books and TV specials and websites and conferences
あれじゃあ
and
実質
doctoral
福島がやってんのこれ何
dissertations keep right
ボー
on
ナスゲーム
coming.
みたいな。そんなことな
I
い。
should point out that the Shakespeare authorship issue is
これのラ
not
ストは
only
何
the
これの
preoccupation
ラ
of
ストゲーム何
cranks and weirdos.
ラスト
A
は、
substantial number of respected authors
な
and
なんていうのそのなんだ
Shakespeareans have
俺
expressed
俺と沢田がやってるや
serious
つのは
doubts
あれだよ
about
な。
the
なんだろうな。
traditional origin of the plays.
ああ、違う違う違う、あそこやってるじゃん。
The list includes
もう
Nathaniel
やってないか。
Hawthorne,
終わらせたか。
Ralph Waldo
さっき
Emerson,
やつですね
Walt Whitman,
多分、あ、
Henry
そうそうそう。
James, Sam Clemens,
なんていうのおまけだよな、お
Sigmund
まけ。
Freud,
まあ、エンドコンテンツ
Orson Welles,
そう
and
そうそうそう
Sir John Gielgud.
福島がやってんの
おまけおまけ。おまけおま
Living
け。どっちもおまけ。
skeptics include the artistic
あ、だか
director
ら
of the New Globe
一応レー
Theater,
ザーが
Mark
全部出る
Rylance,
っていうの
Michael
が
York, Derek Jacobi, Kenneth
まあ
Branagh,
一旦ゴールなん
and
じゃ
even
な
that
い
most
あ、出してか
revered
ら
and
の
scholarly
話
of
だけど。
contemporary
まだあるけど。
Shakespearean actors, Keanu Reeves.
山行ってね。
The current leading candidate for the authorship is Edward de Vere, the 17th Earl of Oxford, a theory first proposed in 1920
まあ、街ク
by
リアし
an
たかどうか
English
楽しいよね。
schoolmaster with the unfortunate name
俺先山行ったけど。
J. Thomas Looney. What is it about Bach,
こ
the
れ多分
Bible,
足跡覚え
and
る
the
だろ
works of Shakespeare that inspires this intense scrutiny?
と解いてないのか
He's looking for acrostics and Chaucer.
そう足
There
跡
are
た
no
どる
hidden
言ってる
CDs
な
of the secret chorales
あ
of
って次の
Wagner
パズル
or
ちょっと聞かない
Beethoven. For the answer, we need to
ここから
recognize the
レムナント
unique roles which the Bible and Shakespeare have
次
played
のパ
in
ズ
the
ルが見つからないと。
development of
よ
Western
く見ろ。
culture.
上からか。上
No
から見る。
other single work of literature has influenced modern English more than the translation of the Holy Bible published in 1611 under the auspices of King James.
あ、砂漠のレーザーだっけ？
The King James Bible exemplifies the meaning of the word classic.
どこにバズらんだ
It
よ、本
has
当
been
に。
called the noblest monument of English prose,
マジで。
the very greatest
まあ
achievement
まあまあまあ。
of the English language.
違うのか。
It has served as
だ
an
って解けるところあったじゃん、今。
generations of poets,
さっき。
dramatists,
これでしょ？
musicians,
じゃあこれで終わりにするか。
politicians, and
あ、
orators.
なんかミニちっちゃいんだよな、このパズル。
Countless people have learned to read
ちっちゃいやつ
by
なのかな。
repeating the phrases in this, the only book
やめよ
their
う。とりあえ
family
ず今日はやめよ
possessed. Our constitutions and our laws have been profoundly shaped by its cadences and imagery. But even the glory of the King James
う。
Bible,
こっちか、そっちか。
compiled by a committee of 46 editors over the course of a decade, pales before the dazzling
一回やってで
legacy
きなかったやめよ
of the Swan of Avon.
すごいぞ、これ記憶力結構いるか
The
らな。
lowest estimate of Shakespeare's working vocabulary is 15,000 words, more than 3 times that of the King James Bible, and twice the size of his nearest competitor, John Milton. His poems and plays were written without the aid of a dictionary or a thesaurus.
まあいいや。
They didn't exist yet. It was all in his head.
まあ他の道がないならそこな
When
んじゃ。
Shakespeare had a thought for which Elizabethan English had no word, he invented one. The Oxford English Dictionary lists hundreds of everyday words and phrases which made their first appearance in the pages of the Bard. Addiction, alligator, assassination, bedroom, critic, dawn, design, dialogue, employer, film, glow, gloomy, gossip, hint, hurry, investment, lonely, luggage, manager, switch, torture, transcendence,
あー、ダメ
warning,
だ。
zany. Hamlet alone
そこまでいいんだけど
contains
な。
nearly 40 of these neologisms. Who today would have this audacity, this giddy exuberance of invention?
まあこれ一回じゃ無理
Only
だな。
one other English author even approaches Shakespeare's facility for coining new words. Sir
もういけそう、
Francis
お前。
Bacon. In the modern era, the record holder is Charles
終わ
Dawson,
り。
better
じゃあ今日
known
は
as Lewis
これで終
Carroll,
わりじゃ。
who, interestingly, also happens to be the second most quoted author in English, after Shakespeare.
あー、デトリスか。じゃあこ
Everyone
れで終わり
has
にしよ
been
う。
profoundly molded by the influences of the King James Bible and Shakespeare.
じゃあ、勝っ
Like
た
it or
か。
not, all of us in the world the
あ、終わった。
dimensions of these great
え、
works.
終わった？
うん。あ、い
They
や、
are
ま
the primary sources
なった
of
あ、違う違う違う、オンエ
modern
ア。
English
オンエア
thought,
出てないでしょ。
the style guides of our minds. Contemplating these dazzling jewels of wisdom and eloquence gives rise to an extraordinary feeling, a potent, rare, and precious emotion,
移動し
with
た。
the potential to completely upset your life. An emotion
多分
powerful
足場言われ
enough
て
to
ますけ
make a
ど。
man abandon his wife and children, forfeit career and
お
reputation,
ー。
lay down his possessions, and follow his
届か
heart
ない。
without questioning.
届かない。
Sweet, sweet
届かない。
fusion
俺が今
of
1台しかやってな
wonder
かったから。
and fear,
届かない。
irresistible attraction, and soul-numbing dread known as awe.
その
Awe
通りは、
is the
竹本ピアノ。
grail of artistic achievement. No other human emotion possesses such raw, transformative power,
あ、ローカルなのかな？
and none is
あ
more
のね、
difficult,
割と乗ってる姉ちゃんがボーボラなのか否かで、しばらくちょっと悩んで
few
る。
and far between
食ったらね。
are the works of man
え、
なんか、
that
なんか乗ってんだよ
qualify
な。
as truly
やめよ。やめ
awesome.
た。
いや、やめちゃうのこれ。
It is
嘘。
awe
え
that convinces a rabbi to
かわいそう。
spend a lifetime
この問題かわいそう。
そうなんだよ、そうるせえよ。パズルにそんなことを求めんじゃねえよ。
awe that sends millions of visitors each year to the pyramids of
ああ
Giza,
ね、エショラがいた。
Guadalupe,
不完全
and
でしょ。
Mecca.
神様ドブル。
Awe that drove poor
ドブルズ
Dorothy
ドブルズ
to her doom.
あ、でもなんかアニメの歌だよな。
Now, please don't
アニメ
come
見れ
away
ます
from this lecture thinking that the
私も
key
歌って
to
たもん。
awesome game design is the
一回岡
installation
本ちゃん
of
がツイー
Easter
ト
eggs.
で、あれ、
Ordinary games with
最
their
近不完
contrived
全燃
Easter
焼しか
eggs
来て
and
ないっ
cheat
ていうの
codes
を
are like the battery of the month club.
あ、一応俺配信してる
You
んで。
have to trudge down to the back of the store to get what you really came
は
for.
い。
If superpower is what people really want,
あ
why
でも
not just
もうやめ
give
よ
it
うか
to
な。
them?
途中だけど。
Is our imagination so impoverished that we have to resort to marketing gimmicks to keep players interested?
やめとくか。
実はチャンピオン取ってるとか。